Good morning and welcome to Valley Views. I'm your host, Glenn Edison. We're certainly glad to have you today. And as always, we want to thank BTC Fiber for hosting our program, as well as our folks in Pikeville that sponsor our program. And they are Embers Ice Cream of Pikeville, White Wagon Bed and Breakfast of Pikeville, and Nickel Roll Antiques of Pikeville. So if you're up that way and want to go in, check out those fine folks. And today I'm honored to be with three local veterans here in the Sequatchie Valley, and between the three they've seen quite a few years in action. And I'll try not to get too political here, because I do have my political views about the veterans, and they're all positive, of course. But anyway, we're honored today to have Johnny Cordell. He's the commander of the VFW Post 5772 here locally. Tommy Hickey, chairman of the Veterans Park Board and Board of Directors, and also William Barker, commander of the American Legion Post 190. So fellas, we appreciate y'all being here today.
Thank you. Thank you.
And I guess one thing that as veterans, to me, because I was unable to join the military because of my epilepsy, so I couldn't participate, and I wanted to because I had many family members that were in the military, and I believe in that. But let's talk about the post down here on 28, and then we'll get into what I know y'all have some things y'all would like to talk about. And your post now is it's a nice place for y'all to have for your meetings. It's more room and everything. So tell us how that kind of transpired. I know there was some work in progress there.
Johnny, you want to take the lead on that?
The post started, I'm gonna have to have some help here. How long ago has it been? About 3 years, 4 years, and 4 or 5 years. It was decided that the American Legion and the VFW, we were meeting at the time in the American Legion building located up here on the north end of town. And it was decided then that we would sell the old VFW post, which is over here. It was was being utilized as a church and still is today. We were able to work out a financial arrangement. We sold the building, and we were able to apply that money toward the building that sits down here on 6808 Highway 28, close to the Memorial Park. And that's how we got into the building. It is a church building, and it's taken several modifications, but it's a lot better than what we were in at the time. And we've had a couple of commanders since then, and we had a note about $50,000, and through the generosity of the county commission and others, we were able to pay off that mortgage. So currently we're in a nice building, and it's debt free, and we're looking to move forward. One of the things we need to do, which is a major capital outlay at this point, is to pave the parking lot. And we'll get that done in the near future, hopefully. We have some projects going on to help pay for that. One of those, I'm going to let one of our officers here of the VFW explain that project that we got going that's specifically dedicated to paving the parking lot at the VFW, or we call it the Veterans Building, because it does house the Post 190 and the VFW Post 5772. Tommy, so if you'll talk about that just a little bit.
Well, when we got in our building, the first thing we realized we needed was our flag poles up to display the American flag and the American Legion flag and the VFW flag. So we managed to raise the money and had the money to put together to get our flag poles put in place. And then when we did that, it kind of looked bare sitting out in the parking lot by itself. So we decided to build with the help of all the members and the ideas and suggestions, we built a memorial out there around our flag poles. And contributions and donations with the exception of one grant. The grant paid for the labor, the rest of the material, and the rest of the labor was donated and contributed by citizens and veterans. And that memorial now is a mountain stone rock wall around the flagpoles. And our intentions are to sell memorial bricks.
Oh. Some
call them pavers, some call them bricks. But what we will do is take those bricks and sell them, and they will be priced at $100 per brick. And you can put anything on that brick, name, family, and memory of, and remembrance of, business places.
In honor of.
In honor of. And it'll be, of course, the brick will be a 4x8, and it'll be limited to characters, so many characters and so many lines per brick. But what we are doing this for is the proceeds from that memorial will help go toward paving our parking lot.
Oh, well, good.
And so all the members will be involved in that, and it's just another project we've got ongoing.
Well, good. I know I was there the day y'all dedicated your flagpoles, and
yes.
I'm sure this will be a good project for y'all.
Yes.
Get this going. Well, and what do y'all have regular fundraisers that y'all do, or dinners or anything like that?
Yeah, we do. We do quite a few fundraisers. In fact, we just finished one at the Walmart. We did very well compared to the last couple of times. COVID kind of hurt any fundraising. Right. The American Legion has a couple of projects. We do a leisure time giveaway every year. We just drew for it. So this time next year we'll be doing that again, and we do fundraisers. Plus renting the building, of course, VFW building, renting the building itself is a fundraiser because we will rent the building out. And it's a really good building. It's got a big auditorium for classes, and there's a kitchen area. The whole building's very well set up. In fact, the sheriff's department, I was talking to them this morning about maybe hosting some classes there.
Oh, well, that'd be nice. Well, it does, because there's fewer and fewer places now to rent to have anything, class or even a meal, because some of the banks which we did depend on, they've converted their meeting places to offices, so that'll help y'all probably.
Yes, it will.
And one of those meals a couple times a year is a fundraiser. We do the jambalaya meal a couple times a year, and that benefits the Veterans Hall. So
we also had a chili cook-off where certain people entered it and had their favorite recipe, and we had gifts and prizes for the winners, and it helped out.
Did you get a lot of people from the community to come out and support that as well?
Oh, yes. Yes, we did.
It was primarily a fundraiser for the VFW Auxiliary, and that's something we probably need to mention. We've got a VFW Auxiliary now, which is open up to people who are close relatives that have somebody that could be in the VFW. They don't have to be a member. So there's an outlay for my son's in the VFW Auxiliary. So there's now an organization here for people that want to support us that maybe didn't have the opportunity or the ability to serve. They can join the auxiliary or support the auxiliary in their projects.
So some of these fundraisers are our first time projects. We're kind of feeling our way as we go, and we're learning as we go. So we look for better things in the future.
Well, and some of these things you're going to try to make them annual events, right?
Yes.
And well, there's nothing like who doesn't like jambalaya or chili, right?
Exactly.
So that should bring people out, and they should come out simply the fact of supporting our veterans, because a lot of people forget, especially today. I think they forget. Maybe people my age don't forget, but they forget that when y'all served, you had to go away from home and left your family here, and they had to deal with you not being here, and you were serving away as spending your time, and as the saying goes, all gave some, and some gave all. So some didn't return home And I'm sure y'all had friends like that you knew, or people that you knew that didn't return. That's why we have the Veterans Memorial down here. Why don't we talk about that for just a minute?
Okay.
Let me interject one thing about the post on these social activities that we do. They are non-alcoholic. So
Yes.
I want to interject that into the conversation. So.
Yeah, a lot of people think that a VFW post, they automatically associate that with a bar. Well, neither the American Legion nor the VFW has a bar. We're non-alcoholic organizations. Everything we do is non-alcoholic.
Well, that's good to know. That's family friendly,
Yes.
so people can, everybody can come in and not worry about bringing their children to an event.
Yes.
But yeah, let's go to the memorial and talk about it just a little bit.
Well, I think the one to talk about that is probably the one who's the driving force behind it, and that's Mr. Tommy Hickey here.
Absolutely.
Well, we're all three members of the board of directors, and we're still serving together.
Yeah.
And the park started actually, and the idea come up in 2009. I retired from Bridgestone Tire Company, and I knew that I had to have something to keep me busy and a project going. So the little gathering place at the time for breakfast was all the old buddies would gather at the Windbob Drive-In and have breakfast. So the idea come up, and somebody said, well, why don't we just build a memorial here? And I said, well, let's just do it then. Let's get it started. And we did. And it started, I think, with a 12-man member setting up. And the first thing we decided, we got to have some money and a bank account.
Yeah.
So those 12 men laid a $100 bill on the table, and we opened up our banking checking account with $1,200 and started from there. Then we formed a board of directors and started laying out the rules and regulations and what the park should look like, what it should represent, and started the drawing board from there.
Well, I know my grandson, he likes when he goes by, he likes to see it. And there was, I think, one day after a soccer game, and it was really cold. And he says, well, I'm going to go by there. And I said, today? And he goes, yeah. So we went out there, and he enjoyed it because he asked a lot of questions, and I was trying to explain some of the things to him, and he was real inquisitive.
Now, the way I got involved in the board is I was deployed. I was over in Iraq, and when I come home, I think I've been home 2 days, and Johnny Cordell calls me and says, congratulations, you're on the board for the Veterans Park. So I got volunteered to be on the board just right after I got back. So, and I've been a part of it ever since. But as Johnny said, Tommy Hickey was the driving force behind it. There would not be a Veterans Park if Tommy hadn't been there to keep everybody on track. So.
And we would be here all morning if we had to list all the contributors and people, individuals that played a part in this. The community was fantastic in turning out to support this project.
And I put our park up against any comparable size park anywhere in the nation.
Oh, I think so. I think you're right, William, because we are a small community, but what our park has represents all the services, and it's there. For our size, it represents what we need it to represent.
As we started out, and as Johnny mentioned, and William, the volunteers and the community that come together, we started out down there under a shade tree at that park with a picnic table set up, and that was our office. We kept all of our paperwork, our records, our receipts, and everything, and the community just come in. It was unreal. They brought us bottled water. They brought us watermelons. They brought food. They brought chili. They brought sandwiches. And it was just every day somebody would come by and volunteer and donate in any way they could, even though they were not able to physically and manually labor the support from the community. And this is a county and a community veterans park. And we appreciate, I mean, this is the most patriotic county, in my opinion, in the state of Tennessee.
Oh, I believe you're right.
And then Johnny and William can give you a little history on how we went to placing in order the different eras of war, and we started all the way back Spanish American.
We actually go back to Revolutionary
Revolution.
War. Even though we weren't organized as a county then, the folks that lived here and several that died here were Revolutionary War veterans, so it actually starts with that.
And you don't have to be an original resident of the county. You just have to have had your residency sometime during your life in this county to be eligible to put your name on the wall.
Okay.
So it's not exclusively for natives of Sequatchie County, but it's for anybody that serves.
And we had a lot of discussion about that.
Yes, we did.
There was a lot of discussion about a lot of things, but we finally got all those ironed out. And because of that, we've had other counties and communities who have sought out our advice, and we can do that because we know what we did wrong.
Yeah.
And correct that. And I don't know, Tommy, probably there's been several communities, a nearby county that has solicited our help and our information that we had.
That's true. Several different counties, and when they call and ask, "Can you help us?" and what advice would you give? And I said, I can help you more, and we as a board can help you by telling you what not to do.
Yeah.
Because we had to learn it the hard way,
Right.
starting out. And I did have the honor and the privilege of going to Cheatham County for the opening dedication of their Veterans Memorial Park there. And it was beautiful. It was a great ceremony, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. It was rewarding.
I thought it was also interesting while y'all were redoing the helicopter. Y'all took it off instead of having climbing on the back like you did on the airplane.
Well, we just finished the A4, Marine A4 aircraft, and it was just really too expensive to do that, so we had to do all that as it was in the air. And that middle of summer, I guess these days it reached 100 degrees, and we had two crews. We had a ground crew and an air crew. Ground crew stayed pretty much on the bottom, and the air crew, with 4 or 5 of us, would get up on top of the aircraft. And with safety in mind, if we had to, we would tie ourselves off with safety gear. And but when this opportunity come along, Tommy, you know the guys that actually volunteered their time.
Yeah, Richard and his brother with S&H Erectors out of Chattanooga. They originally built the mounts for the aircraft that's down there.
Okay.
The A4 and the Huey. We sent them our idea, and they drew up the plans, presented it to us, and gave us a price. And we made that deal with them. But to take the A4 back off of the mounts and put it on the ground was going to be so expensive, and no way of supporting that aircraft without letting the landing gears down.
Yeah.
And they were a real problem to get up in the plane to start with no hydraulics attached to it. It was manpower, muscle power, and it was a lot of hard work. So we decided to scaffold up all the way around the A4, lay plenty of plywood up there for walking space, and like Johnny said, safety straps and tying herself off, But when the Huey project come along, the great volunteers and the men right here in this county who were employed with H&H Erectors, and some retired and have gone back helping them part-time. So they volunteered their equipment and their time and helped us set that Huey back down on the ground where we could work better and safer. So that's how that come about. And then when we got it completed, they come back and they set it back up there, free and voluntarily.
Yeah, I was watching them that day when they was putting it back up, and I thought, boy, that's a lot of work, involved.
A lot of skill goes into that, trained skill for safety.
Right, because my fear all the time is when you get it up in there, that something happening where then. But anyway, I'm glad everything worked out.
That's when a lot of prayers come in handy right for.
Yeah.
Anytime we have a meeting like this, we cannot get around the subject of money, and so we are continually soliciting for funds to maintain the park. We get thankfully we get help from the county commission annually, and that normally takes care of all the flags, and I don't know how many it takes, Tommy knows, but we also now have a box down there you can put money in, and it has and we've come into the modern world, we have a QR code that you take your phone and donate money if you so desire. So how many flags do we utilize down there during the course of a year?
We'll go through at least sometimes 4 sets a year. It's according to the weather. If we have real gusty winds and a lot of bad weather throughout the year, those flags take a beating.
Right.
And we'll go through 3 to 4 sets in a year's time, and they average replacing those are between $600 and $700 per set.
Wow.
So that amounts up pretty quick. And then the sidewalk lights, those are special ordered bulbs, and the ballast alone that's down underneath the concrete. When we installed those, the ballast alone was $180 a piece.
Wow.
So I don't know what the cost would be now,
Yeah.
but back then we bought 2 spares to have on hand.
And it's going to get more expensive because
Sure it is.
we're going to have to add another flag. They got the Space Force now, and that's going to be a challenge. I don't know how we're going to do that and make it symmetric.
Yeah.
You know, so that's ahead of us.
Yes.
And we don't have anybody locally in that Space Force, do we? That you're aware
Not
of?
that I'm aware of.
No,
Well, we probably got some that qualify. They're a little spacey, but
Yeah. Is he talking about you, Willie? No.
But now that being said, had I been 18 years old when they started the Space Force, that's probably where my career would have went.
Yeah.
well, I'm sure I would have been very interested in that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's but they're a new service and they're feeling their way, and it's but I'm looking forward to having a veteran from the Space Force.
And for a while, they did, you know, they had to have a song. You got to get that.
Yeah.
So I think they have that now. They have a song that they can play at our military events. So.
Well,
And speaking of the Veterans Park and the contributions in the community, we really try to get the younger generation to understand, these younger veterans to join up with us and take a part, because one day we are not going to be able to do the work we're doing today,
right.
and this younger generation must step up and take our place and keep our park the way it is.
Right. I mean, you want. I guess that's been. I've seen over the years the lack of involvement of younger veterans.
Yes.
And I know you would like to have more.
That's a dilemma. In fact, I just went to some leadership training with the American Legion not too long ago. It's one of the dilemmas of any organization. Younger veterans have children that are in balls, sports and stuff, for them to be active. So we're going to try to get to where they're at, you know, where we can support them, where they and maybe get some back from them, sponsoring ball teams, stuff like that. That's all stuff we're looking for and trying to expand to in the future. But right now we got to take baby steps. We got a lot on our plate. We've got the Veterans Program coming up, Veterans Day.
Right.
The schools have got a big event the day before Veterans Day. Got 2 events.
Correct.
At the middle school and the high school. And that's also the Marine Corps birthday. So we're having a little ceremony at the Veterans Hall after all that.
Oh,
For that, and then you got Veterans Day the next day, and then we've got the day after that, you've got the Challenge 22 going on. So, you know, it's going to be a busy several days, which, you know, the Veterans Park, we got the color guard we're going to march in. We have a joint color guard between the VFW and American Legion. We'll have to march in the parade. Tommy organizes the ceremony. It's we got a busy few days coming up. So.
Right.
Yes, we do.
Well, I know the schools in the past few years have been really involved in a lot of the programs.
Yeah. Natalie Jenkins is she's been awesome with the school, especially the high school, making sure they are always, of course, she's got a child that's in service now.
Right. He's in the Air Force, right?
Yeah,
Yes.
I think he's overseas right now. So.
And for the first time, we'll have a VFW Teacher of the Year, which will be announced later. And we do the Patriots Pen at the middle school, essays, and then at the high school, they do virtually the same thing, except it's audio.
Oh, okay.
And American Legion does, we got Boys and Girls State coming up next year. We'll be starting the process of that selection in the next month. We're also going to try to do a Firefighter and Policeman of the Year award this year, start that. Plus in about April, we'll be recognizing a local pastor, what we call the Four Chaplains Award. We used to do that several years ago, and COVID kind of knocked it down. We're trying to reinstate that. So COVID hurt us just like it did everybody else. We're, so some of the stuff we were doing before, we're trying to get started back up into.
Yes.
And just to segue into that, the VFW and the American Legion, we work hand in hand. Not that we don't have problems every now and then, but we do a major effort to work together. I know William and I work together well. And
Johnny's past commander of the American Legion.
I'm past commander of the American Legion about 100 years ago.
I'm past commander of the VFW.
Yeah, right. So we understand the functions and activities of both organizations. So,
and I think the VFW American Legion, we're all together, we're all brothers, but there are some differences between the two organizations in that eligibility. You don't, in the American Legion, you don't have to have served overseas. It's less restrictive. As long as you serve during wartime or designated time periods by the American Legion, you're perfectly eligible to join the American Legion, and we would encourage anybody to join because we all work together. There's no discrimination against what kind of service you had. You didn't choose where you served. You were sent where you went where you were sent. So if you're not, if you didn't happen to have to go to Iraq, but you were teaching a school in stateside during that time, you're still eligible for the American Legion. And we're all one. We're two different organizations, but we're all one family. And we're going. It's my intention to keep it that way.
And only one requirement is an honorable discharge.
Yep.
And I'd be remiss too that now we have several female veterans now in our organization.
Yes,
so that and we have our adjutant at our VFW is a female veteran. So.
And she's my second vice commander.
And second vice in the American Legion. So, we're glad to have that. Those female and women veterans in our organizations and working. Like any organization, it takes a lot of folks to keep everything going, and usually that's about 20% of the organization. It's kind of like church. 20% of the people do all the work and the donations. So
yeah, I'd like to reiterate what Johnny said as far as female veterans. If you're a female veteran and you want to come to one of our meetings, and the American Legion meets on the fourth Thursday or Tuesday of every month at 6 o'clock, you're not going to be the only woman there. And that's all. I think that was a problem beforehand. We'd have a lady show up. Well, a bunch of crusty old veterans in the room. She didn't have a lot to, and wouldn't come back. But we have several. We don't have meetings now where there's not one or two, but female veterans are, and they're such an important part of our organizations that we encourage them. The VFW meets the third Tuesday of every month at 6, and everybody that's eligible is welcome.
Well, that's good. I was going to ask how could they contact you about the meeting times and getting involved?
Yeah, there's phone numbers on the door of the Veterans Hall, but they can get a hold of me at the sheriff's office. I work at the sheriff's office, so I'm easy to get a hold of. I'll help them anyway. Tommy down at the Veterans Hall. Tommy, I want to also recognize him for something else. He's our #1 recruiter. He has a lot of contact with veterans, and I don't think a month goes by he ain't got 2 or 3 new people signed up. So Tommy's one heck of a recruiter, and we recognized him in American Legion.
I'm after this younger generation.
Yeah. So, but
well, speaking of members, roughly how many members do y'all have now?
I think the VFW, we have about 80 plus. We were formed, the local chapter was formed in 1947 with about 40 members, so we doubled. We went through a period of non-activity, and I think a lot of that might have revolved around days when we were in the old VFW building, and it was alcoholic, and sometimes when you mix veterans and alcohol, it's not always
not a good outcome.
So we went through actually a period of inactivity for a while, and then the
just
reconstituted VFW locally, it hasn't been that long, has it, Tom?
No, we almost lost the VFW about 2010, 11.
Yeah.
When the Veterans Memorial Park started.
Yeah.
And veterans started coming in to have their names placed up on the wall, we'd recruit right then.
Yeah.
And we got our membership back up and saved our charter.
I was commander of the VFW, and I went to a district meeting, and at that district meeting, they were going to vote, and I didn't know it. I just showed up at the meeting. They were going to vote to all the property was going to be transferred to Jasper. They were going to recommend the state our charter be pulled and all the property.
Oh, really?
And I show up at a meeting, they had to change their plans because suddenly we were an active post, and we were really active. Not as active as we are now, but
yeah.
we salvaged the post, and that was, I think the park helped salvage the post, and probably did salvage the post, and so the park it gave back to the veterans that have worked on the park, but the VFW at one time was on life support. It was just a paper organization, and but we resurrected it to the dedication of a lot of the members. And now the VFW is as strong, or it may be, even a little stronger than the American Legion is, although we're all strong together. So
that's right.
Well, I don't think there's a day that doesn't go by that when I drive by there's always a car or cars there with people getting out, either checking their family members on the wall or just looking at the park and checking it out.
Yeah, it's part of the attraction. You have things that attract people to your county and spend money, and that park is one of those. And you're correct. I see the same thing.
Yes.
Yeah, there's going to be a veterans service fair. I think they've set it for January, sometime in January.
January. Yeah.
And then
resource fair.
And we did a Vietnam commemorates last year that went over really well.
Yes, it did.
And
talking about new veterans joining, the Desert Storm, a great deal of those troops were Vietnam veterans. So actually, your younger veterans are going to be Iraqi and Afghanistan. Mm-hmm. And that's going to be the challenge, because there's going to be a big gap there between that war and the Iraqi and Afghanistan. And it's going to be a challenge to recruit, because in Afghanistan and Iraq, opposite of what happened in Vietnam, you spent your year and come home, which is opposite of Afghanistan and Iraq, because they served multiple tours.
Right.
Some up 4, 5, 6 tours. So yeah, a lot of tours, but it's the same veterans. So they don't have an extremely large pool to draw from like World War II and Vietnam. I think Vietnam had about 10 million in service and 3 million in country. So yeah, that's going to be a real challenge. And as far as the park goes, these young veterans, when we're talking about it now, trying to update our park with newer equipment, it's reflective of Afghanistan and Iraq. We're looking for a Humvee right now. And some people say, well, why don't you just go out and buy one? Well, we don't have the money to buy one. All that equipment down there in the park, all those static displays, were donated, or we give a tax write-off. We give quite a bit of tax write-off for the Huey down there.
Yes, we did.
And it came in parts. We had to put it back together. I don't remember, but it was quite a bit of money. So we're able to do that, or try to get it donated.
And the rest of it's on loan from the Department of Defense.
Right.
We have to maintain it to their specifications.
We get inspected, whatever, 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
We just finished the A4 inspection.
Yeah, they actually come down here on site and check everything, make sure it's
Yeah.
up to date.
Yeah, and it's a continuing project. It's not, you don't just put say the M59, the armored personnel carrier, you don't just park it and leave it. You know, you got to upkeep it. You know, it's probably the next item that'll need to be refurbished, some repainted, and you know, we're responsible for that. All that takes money. You know,
We have to fill out an annual report every year and show proof and cause that we still want this equipment and we still want it on display in our park. And we have to take photos of it and show them that we're keeping it in great condition.
Yeah.
Or they have the right to come and repossess it.
and from what I've seen in other parks, we do I ain't gonna say we do a better job, but our stuff is maintained at a higher standard, I think, than just about any park that you will see. So you know, I'm very proud, and I don't get, because I work full time, I don't get to help them as much as I want to with the upkeep. But these two gentlemen put in a lot of time on doing the upkeep and the maintenance of the.
We have
of the
a lot
equipment.
of dedicated volunteers.
Yep.
Dedicated.
And we're lucky we got some that's got expertise in those particular pieces of equipment.
I'll throw in another attaboy. That property down there belongs to the school board. And I'll have to add that their buildings and grounds, Benny Barker is the supervisor of that, and they do a good job of mowing and weeding the park. So
Yes, they do.
we certainly appreciate that.
Well, what about, I know when I was in high school, which is a long time ago, they had ROTC programs. Are those still around, or have they pulled a lot of those out? Or?
Johnny can probably update us on.
I tried to get an ROTC program here, and back in the day, first of all, you got to have a place to store the weapons, because they do have weapons. We could probably have covered that, worked something out with the armory down here, our local National Guard unit. But you have to pay the salary, half the salary of a military officer and a enlisted man. And back then, and you're probably talking today over $100,000 just for our share of that. You pay them whatever their rank is. So if you bring in a master sergeant or master chief or a colonel or a major, the cost of it going to be quite high. And we had to have, I believe, about 50% of your student body, or a certain number, it was pretty high, that has to take part in the ROTC. So, and I initially wanted a Marine Corps ROTC, but that's not ever going to happen. They're few and far between. Most common is Army, and we have to work out of what's the fort up in Kentucky there?
Fort Campbell.
Fort Campbell is who we work through. We just wasn't able to make it happen. We just didn't have the financial funds at that time to do that. But yeah, I worked on that, I guess, for about a year trying to make that happen. But we're just not quite big enough, really.
There's some programs over in Chattanooga. I think. Is there young Marines over? I know there's a naval that.
I don't know if there's a Marine ROTC, but there's several armies. There may be a Marine ROTC in Knoxville, but like I say, they're few and far between.
Yeah.
it's on the wish list of stuff to do in the future. But we can't try to do everything at once. There's so many programs that just the American Legion does, you know, that if we tried to do them all at once, it'd be a shambles, you know. So what I'm trying to do is increase our participation. I'd like to open in the near future American Legion riders for motorcycle. I'm not a motorcycle rider, but it's a very popular program. I'd like to see it, and there's a lot of people that are motorcycle enthusiasts here that I think we could get some participation in. But like I said, baby steps. We can't do everything at once. So,
you know, there's a lot of things we could do if we had a full-time person at the facility down at the Veterans Hall. I mean, these things like, especially the younger generation, internet cafes, that sort of thing. So, because it's the younger generation, they're all about the internet, technology. You know, I'm still old-fashioned. I like to talk to people on the phone.
Yeah.
But those days, apparently, going by the wayside.
Slipping us by.
I still want to print out that flow chart off my computer, so I've got a piece of paper to hang up to look at.
Well, y'all just need to get with it.
Yeah.
Like Tommy said, we're not going to be here much longer. You know, it's just catching up with us.
Well, and
I'm 75. And Tommy's a day younger than me.
That's right, he's the oldest.
William's a youngster.
Yeah.
Actually, I coached William in football.
Yeah.
I had him in the Boy Scouts
Yeah.
years ago. So
I remember getting several paddlings from Mr. Cordell. but I'm 57, so I'm not young either. I mean, I'm not old yet, but you know, 5 years out from eligibility to Social Security, you know, I've got a stepson and a nephew they're all getting them involved though. Is you know, they're eligible, just getting them involved. So.
And if they're interested in leadership positions, we have plenty of leadership positions.
Yep.
It's like William said, we know the younger generation, they're still working, they're holding down full-time jobs, and they have family. But when their family graduates and goes out into the world and get their jobs and go their separate ways, and these men and women retire from work, they're going to need something to occupy their time and their mind.
right.
And what better way to do it than to help the volunteers of the community and step up and take our place.
And whether you served in wartime or peacetime, if you served in the military, it's a subculture, just like, you know, other things are. But we all speak a language that not everybody else, they don't speak it the same way we do, you know, and we all understand each other's problems. You know, being away from home, the song Letters from Home, and that was popular back during Desert Storm. To this day, I can't listen to it because it means so much. It'll bring tears to my eyes every time. And not that I'm a wimp, it's just that until you had to write those letters and wait for that mail call, just praying you're called, you know. Well, nobody else experiences that, you know.
Sure.
You know, a police officer, firefighter, he goes out and does wonderful things, great heroic things during the day. He goes home to his family every night. You know, there's guys overseas right now putting their life on the line. Now, granted, with modern technology, they have more contact at home than we had back during Desert Storm, and Tommy and Johnny had, you know, in the Vietnam era. But still, you're not there with them when your kids are hurt, and you know it because this last time I deployed, I had more contact. Well, my grandmother got sick while I was gone. You know, you can't be there. You can't go see them. You can't, you know, you can't call them all the time and stuff like that. And even that's a sacrifice. But the unsung heroes are those that are stay at home. You know, the one thing I'll say, and then I'll shut up, is I didn't understand what families went through until I had retired, and my son, Ryan Sutherland, when he deployed to Afghanistan, watching him walk down that concourse, that airport, away from me, and knowing he was going to be in danger and I was at home, that hurt. That probably affected. But that was the hardest thing I ever did, was watch him walk down there, because I was always the one walking away, you know. And that's a little easier than it is to watch your own child walk down that ride. And that, so Brian brought me a true believer in what families go through.
I know when I deployed overseas in 60 and 70, my oldest son Travis, I think, was about 2 years old. He saw me off and really didn't know me when I got back. And then all these years later, Desert Storm comes along, and I go to Fort Campbell and I see him off. And then I go home and there's my letter to called active duty, and so we actually both served together. And you talk about family back home. You know, when you have a husband and a son, and then a younger son that goes off to school in Alabama, and all of a sudden you're by yourself. And I come from a big family, wife comes from a big family, and you're right. It's tougher on the folks at home.
Because they got to deal with that day-to-day stuff.
Right.
You know, the soldier's over there, he's got to deal with his sergeant and what his duties are for that day. And they may be very dangerous duties, you know, not taken away from those, but she's still got to make sure the bills are paid. She's still got to make sure the people are taken care of, the kids get to ball. I had a wife when I was up at Fort Campbell in 2003 waiting to go. My wife had 3 kids on 3 different ball teams. I take that back. She had 2 kids on 2 different ball teams and a 3-year-old that she was dealing with on data. And somehow those kids got to their games and their practices. I don't know how she done it. Well, I do, my mother and her support group. But, you know, not everybody has that support group.
That's true.
You know, and so the family, never forget what the families go through when the soldier deploys.
Right.
Yeah.
I guess one takeaway from today, though, any veterans out there, whether you're retired or just served your time and came home, or if you're on active duty, maybe at the Guard unit or wherever, come check us out. Like William said, we meet every 3rd Tuesday and 4th Tuesday, respectively.
Week apart.
So come check us out, and we need you in the VFW and the American Legion.
They can also go to the websites and get more information.
Speaking of the websites, what are they?
It should be VFW 5772 at gmail.com. I think that's right.
Yeah.
Her is legionpost190.org.
And the phone number is 949-5772, which is the number of the post. Now, we don't have anybody there during the day, but we do get the message.
Okay. Well, is there anything else you'd like to bring out that we haven't brought out?
Well, I'm sure when this goes on the TV, somebody will say, "Why didn't you talk about so-and-so?" But actually, I guess we could stay here all morning. But
Yeah.
I know your time is limited, and we appreciate the opportunity to come and appear on your broadcast.
This is just giving out thanks to the community.
Absolutely.
And the continued support. It's been mind-blowing from the beginning, and we still have that support. But things get more expensive as time goes, and all contributions and donations are greatly accepted.
Yeah.
And it goes strictly to the park maintenance.
And don't forget that this very moment, there may be a soldier overseas dying for our freedom.
Yeah.
We can't never forget that. On Fridays, I always wear a red shirt or a pin that says Red Friday. And red stands for Remember Everyone Deployed. So we don't need to forget, even though things may get comfortable here, we still have soldiers in harm's way. And pray for them, pray for our country. I think we need a lot of prayer right now. We'll get into politics, but the American Legion's apolitical. We don't get involved in political stuff, but pray for our nation, pray for our soldiers, and but for God and country, that's what the American Legion's motto is. So, God's very much a part of our organization.
And it's in our respective bylaws that we do not discuss politics.
Correct.
Period.
Period.
And Glenn, I appreciate, I know Glenn does the color commentary and announcing at the high school football games. So, oh, and my condolences on the Alabama game.
I ain't gonna give him condolences. After 15 years.
Well, that's all right. Well, listen, I appreciate y'all being here today, and thank you for your service. And folks, again, if you see these people out, thank them for their service. Don't be bashful. Even if they're not in uniform, you go out and appreciate them, because they're here for you, and they'll do a lot of things. And if you'd like to help our local veterans at all costs, donate or give your time, money, whatever you can, and help these fine folks out. And again, would like to say you can see this interview on BTC Fiber's YouTube page, as well as BTC Fiber's Cable Channel 18. And again, thankful for our sponsors, Embers Ice Cream of Pikeville, Nickel Roll Antiques of Pikeville, and White Wagon Bed and Breakfast of Pikeville. So until next time, have a great day.
Hey everybody, this is Glenn Edison from Valley Views. We appreciate you watching our shows, and we would like for you to like, share, and follow us on Facebook, as well as like and subscribe to our YouTube page.